This program is powered by thevirtual.show, making your offline events virtual. Ladies and gentlemen, the host of WEBIT Virtual, Dr. Plamen Russev.
Hello, wonderful WEBIT community. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for joining another WEBIT Virtual episode. Well, normally people call this virtual events, but with us, we used to have like one event per year. Now we have 3 to 4 per week. So it's a celebration. It's not event anymore. We celebrate the professional and business connection, but above all, the opportunity to represent thought leadership in a world which thought leadership has been replaced by breaking news. And that's where we are. We just start the Thought Leadership Week on mobility. The future of mobility is what we are going to be discussing in the next, not 3, but 4 editions this week. First, we start with truly phenomenal participants. You will hear who they are and you can ask your questions via all social media channels and the hashtag WEBIT. Tomorrow, we shall continue with a special event on startups and investors with some of the best startups to be funded by our global investors community. And then on Thursday, we have the Leading Media Forum, where we are bringing together, obviously, leading media to reflect on the future of mobility. And on Friday, we are having a special edition with some other great guests. You will hear all the names and news upcoming, but without further ado, I would like to introduce our first guest today, and he's a phenomenal human being, literally. Look who is he.
Dr. Bertrand Piccard is the initiator and visionary behind Solar Impulse, the very first airplane capable of flying perpetually without fuel. A doctor, psychiatrist, author, and aviator, he is also the president of the Winds of Hope Humanitarian Foundation, United Nations Goodwill Ambassador, and an officer of the French Legion of Honor.
Hello and welcome, dear Bernard. Such a pleasure to have you with us.
Very happy to be here. It's a topic I love. Mobility, clean mobility of the future.
I'm sure you love it. You're actually changing it. You're shaping it. So I'm sure you're going to be a phenomenal guest in our virtual studio. And I'm very honored to welcome you back to WEBIT. Last time we've been together, you were our special guest of a reception in Davos, I think 2 years ago. So thank you for joining us back, and look forward to discuss the future of mobility through your point of view. Our viewers have seen your business card. I mean, as long as 30 seconds can show the magic that you have created. But just for the protocol, you have done 2 around the world trips, one with a hot air balloon and the second one with a solar powered airplane, the Solar Impulse, which you and your team have created. And you have showed the world that impossible means nothing. So I know you've been answering these questions for so many times, but still, to give the start of our discussion, let's go back couple of years when you have done this miracle to use only the solar power to make a turn around this planet. What were the biggest challenges you faced? I've seen a lot of your interviews. Many people from your team, I think you including, have said that you don't even realize what exactly you have done. And there are so many implications of what you have achieved. So a few years later, Do you realize what you have done?
I realize when I see that it becomes useful when we speak about the mobility of the future. It was a milestone to go around the world with an airplane, without fuel, just with the power of the sun, with no pollution. And so many people were saying it's impossible. Exactly like the Wright brothers were told in 1903 when they were starting to fly. People were saying it's impossible to fly with a heavier than air, and they did it. And now we wanted to break the rules again, change the paradigm, and fly with no fuel. So, of course, everybody said it was impossible. And what is so extraordinary in the world of explorers is when everyone says it's impossible, and you understand that the impossible is not in the reality. The impossible is in the mindset of the people who cannot imagine a future that is different from the past. And this is fascinating, because when no one believes that you can do it, you have to create everything from scratch. You need to build a team, you need to invent new technologies, you need to put people together, and everyone feels a pioneer. Each one feels that he's bringing a little something to make a different future.
And this future is the desirable future that we all want to build. You know, it became so common, people to say the new normal, the new normal. I mean, we believe, and I think that I represent the WEBIT community here in the fact that the new normal is hopefully going to be the normal. Finally, the normal, not polluting, not destroying the nature, but going back to normal, creating an environment in which we, the humans, will live in a harmony and synchrony with the mother nature. And you are leading this movement your way, proving to the world that it is possible. Now, the question is, where do we go next? You have created the Solar Impulse Efficient Solution label, aiming most probably to build this leverage and say, okay, we start from here upwards. What is the real implication of your amazing proof of results compared to where the corporates, where the policymakers are at the moment? Do they take part in this now?
I initiated the Solar Impulse project as a symbol to show that clean technologies and renewable energies can achieve goals that are considered to be impossible. But of course, it's not enough to make a symbol. You need also afterward to go further. That was our motto at the landing in Abu Dhabi at the end of the Round the World. Now, let's take it further. And further, for the Solar Impulse Foundation, this is to select 1,000 technological solutions. Can be a clean technology, a system, a product, a material, a program that is financially profitable to protect the environment. And this is important because we need to show that protection of the environment is not just a wishful thinking from the green parties. It is not something that is just done for the sake of protecting nature and destroying the economy. We have to show that it is profitable for the economy. So today we have 540 technologies that have been labeled by the Solar Impulse Foundation as financially profitable, protecting the environment, and credible. It means they exist today, they can go on the market today, or they're already on the market. And the goal is to prove to the governments and to big corporations that the tools already exist to have much more energy efficient systems, that they can be much more ambitious in the energy policy and in the environmental targets that they set.
We have here with us, and he will join very soon this discussion, the co-founder and executive chairman of Lime. So we shall be talking about the city mobility with him further. But I would like to put a special focus on our discussion with you particularly on the future of the aviation. Based on the facts that our teams have exchanged, there are clear numbers that over 3% of the carbon footprint by the industry is cast by the aviation, and that might sound like not a very big number. Honestly, I thought it's more, but definitely it is a significant number in general, especially if we see the tons of carbon dioxide released in the atmosphere. So where do you think that the aviation is heading? What will be your visionary point of view here?
First, I would like the aviation not to be a victim of sustainable development. 3% of CO2, okay, it is 3%, but it is less than the video streaming. It is more than half of textile industry. It is 15 times lower than the CO2 emitted by the constructions, the houses. So we have to remain reasonable. We have to improve aviation, but pointing out at aviation in order to keep everything else as it is, it's not normal. If you criticize the people who fly in an airplane and during the time you do not fly in the airplane, you are doing a video streaming, you are polluting as much as the guy who's flying. So what I believe is that aviation in general has put itself in trouble itself. Last year, I wrote a big article explaining that the airlines, by refusing to offset the carbon emissions in the price of the ticket of the passengers, was getting close to a crash. You know, you cannot refuse to take responsibility. And today you have EasyJet, you have Air France, who have decided to offset their emissions, and it's good. Of course, it's good, but all the other airlines still refuse to do it. It's not normal. If they have taken responsibility and put maybe, $5, €5 of offset compensation on a flight inside the US or inside Europe or inside Asia and a little bit more to cross an ocean, it would have been such a good sign. Everybody would have said, wow, aviation, it's doing its best. And then, of course, you have technologies that can be implemented in parallel in order to make aviation cleaner and cleaner and more efficient. And in that sense, the CO2 price offset would be lower and lower every year because the airplanes would emit less. But we have to start with something. The airlines have clearly been guilty of not doing what they had, and they gave a bad image of aviation. And now the airplane manufacturers are suffering from it, but it's not their fault. It was not them who had to compensate the CO2 emitted by the passengers.
I can't agree more. I don't want to become political here, but I will just give an example. It was very interesting mathematical exercise of someone from the WEBIT community making a very simple math, saying that if you travel with a speedboat, wind-driven speedboat, from Europe to US, New York, last year around September, you would have been casting 800 times more carbon dioxide rather than if you were flying with a commercial jumbo jet the same way. Simply because of the way that all the materials, exhaust, etc. So the production of the sails, etc. takes more to transport 2-3 people by this boat rather than hundreds via the jumbo jet. So I can't agree more with you. We should not put a sign on industries and making them impossible to use, because obviously mobility is what drives the economy. But you told me what you think about the current status. How do you see the future? Where do you see the future of aviation? We see what is happening now to beyond the orbit exploration. We see how something that costed billions now costs tens of millions. And we see so many new inventions, at least at WEBIT. Last year, we had many different flying bicycles, cars, etc., being presented. So how do you see this vertical developing in the next 3 to 5 years?
I can say that in the next 6 years and 2 months, we will have electric airplanes carrying 50 people for short haul. And I'm so precise because 3 years and 10 months ago, I said in 10 years. So we have to do it. The countdown has started. You cannot always say in 10 years, in 10 years. You really have to keep the deadlines. So today, there are airplanes with 2 people who fly on full electric, 2 hours flight and 40 minutes to recharge. The Americans had a Cessna Caravan flying with 9 people. It's a 9-seater. They are a project for 12-seaters. It's starting well. Now what I really hope is that an airline will have the courage to ask Airbus or Boeing to have as soon as possible a 50-seater full electric. Because if you create the demand, then of course the airplane constructors will set the offer. So it will be an electric airplane, not like Solar Impulse, to be clear. Solar Impulse was an electric airplane producing its own electricity with the sun during the flight. This is how we could fly for several days and several nights, almost perpetual flight. It's not what passengers want. What we need to give passengers is a flight at 500 kilometers per hour, 2 hours of flight, and full electric with batteries that can be charged on the ground, not in the air. This is absolutely feasible. Now, of course, hydrogen would be better. In the 1,000 solutions that we are selecting, there is a company who has a fully ready hydrogen propulsion that can be installed on existing cells of airplanes. This has to develop also. So France has set 2035 as the goal to have clean airplanes. I think it's feasible. All the ones who say it's impossible will look ridiculous as much as the ones who were laughing at the Wright brothers seemed ridiculous afterwards. So we have to be really careful before saying something is impossible.
No, Bertrand, you have already proven that that word impossible is actually possible if you only have the imagination and work really hard to achieve it. So that's what we've seen. My question would be, before we invite Brat to our discussion, would be, how did COVID impact the development of the industry? We see that tourism is suffering big time, and tourism is the main driver for the aviation industry to develop in the way that it has developed until a couple of months ago. We know that after 11th of September, US needed 2 years plus to recover to the levels of hospitality industry revenues where it was before the accident. So how do you think that the timer needs to be pushed a little bit further before the industry recovers and they start? Here for the protocol, we are going to be having 2 Airbus representatives. The person responsible for innovation and collaboration with startups, Christian, is joining us tomorrow. Airbus Speedlab, and then we have Susanna, who is joining us on Friday. She's responsible for the general innovation, and she's the CEO. So there are people that will be listening, and now we have 9,000 people listening to you. So is COVID going to accelerate or to lower the speed of development, of innovation in the industry? What do you think?
Let's be very clear. What we had before the COVID-19 crisis was a world that was polluting, fragile, unstable, unfair, and the virus almost destroyed it. So all the people who say that they want to go back to what we had before the crisis are going to destroy the future. What we need in a crisis is not to recover what we had before, but to build and invent something better in order for us to be stronger after the crisis than before. So today there are billions and billions of dollars and euros who are flooding on the markets to help the industry to recover. There should be some conditions for that money to be used. And the condition should be to use today all the cleanest technologies, products, materials, sources of energy in order to build new businesses, to create more jobs, to create more profits. And a very interesting study has shown recently that if you inject $10 million on the market, you create 10 times more jobs if you go on renewable energies than if you go on fossil-based sources of energy. So it's very, very clear that there is something new to build. So the recovery has to be clean, has to be green, otherwise it will not be a recovery. And today we have a unique chance, unique opportunity to make a world that has more modern infrastructure, more modern sources of energy, more efficiency everywhere, because efficiency pays for itself. So the money that you borrow can be given back just because everything is profitable. So this is the way to do. And what I really would like the people who are listening to us to understand is that even if there was no problem with the environment, even if there was no climate change, if the climate change deniers were right, all these technological solutions that make the world more efficient are logical, even more than ecological. They are logical because they make sense economically speaking. So we have to go for a society that is much more efficient, and aviation has to become more efficient. Tourism has to be more efficient. I just give you an example. If you have a hotel on the side of the sea, on the shore, and you produce your air conditioning with a diesel generator, it costs you about $1 million per year more for your diesel than if you take the cold from the bottom of the sea to cool down your air conditioning.
Oh my gosh.
Technologies like this that just have to be implemented because they are profitable.
Wow. I have our team distributed all around now listening to this, and I'm sure they are tweeting and taking all these quotes from what you're saying, because they're groundbreaking and they're very important. It's a cornerstone of the future circular economy and the Green Deal that here in Europe we are really working hard, hopefully, to achieve. In October, WEBIT is going to be hosting a large-scale hybrid post-COVID, hopefully post-COVID edition event, and we shall be talking a lot about this, and hopefully we'll be having the pleasure to have you back. With your permission, I would like now to bring into the discussion our next guest. Please stay with us so we can have a discussion, all of us together. Look who is my guest here in the studio.
Brat co-founded Lime in 2017, the leading urban mobility platform that's currently operating scooter and bike share services in over 100 markets in 30 countries globally, with a vision of reimagining the future of urban living and making it more sustainable and enjoyable, starting with micro-mobility.
The topic
Hello,
of
Brat.
future. Hello, hi everyone.
In our studio.
Thank you. Really great to be here, and very excited about the topic of future of urban future of mobility.
Well, we already started from the air with no one better but the person who managed to prove the world that it is possible to use solar energy and to make every movement a value for the nature instead of a damage for it. But you have made a revolution in city mobility launching your being co-founder and currently executive chairman of Lime. You have, as your business card has stated to our virtual attendees of numbers of 9,000 plus, you have very quickly expanded globally, and we traveling back then, we have seen Lime everywhere. So what has changed? What did COVID change in the mobility industry? What had to change? What needs to be changed now?
Yeah, first of all, really great to be here, and thanks again for giving me the opportunity to discuss this very important topic here. And second, that I want to just show my respect and admiration to Ms. Piccard, and also, you know, the all the rest of the folks are on the call right now, and including yourself. I think we live in the world that there are many voices will say this is impossible, or you know, this is the status quo, or we already finished everything we could do. I just you know, don't agree with that, and I think as entrepreneurs, as let's just say, you know, explorers, right? I'm not a scientist, so I cannot call myself a inventor in many ways, but I do agree with Bertrand that there are many things could be possible. There are many things could be done. It is foolish to call anything is impossible. It is irresponsible to just stop exploring the better ways. So for us, I think back to the question, what has changed and what has not changed. I think there are impacts on the short term and also impacts on the long term. In the short term, of course, with shelter in place, many users or people that cannot travel or even go out, I think it's responsible for us to fight together against this pandemic. And the pandemic is global and nobody is immune from it. So it does need a collaboration of everyone to fight it again, you know, together. That has a significant impact in the short term on our business. And we, as a company, we took the responsibility to help reduce the spread of the virus. So we shut down 99% of our market when when the pandemic hits. We suffered significantly from the revenue and you know, profits or whatnot. But I think as a company that's serving the global population, the user base, it is what we need to do. It's not what we had to do. There's no one ask us or order us to do so, but we think that's the right thing to do. That's in the short term. However, in the long term, I think the few things are going to change and are going to last. One of the things is how we see travel, you know, when it comes to post-pandemic. I think we've seen many significant signs. We're reopening some of the markets already and providing the service as essential services to healthcare, you know, providers, to first responders, to the city, and for the users to get around. But I think the user has already showed significant interest in open air and individual travels in order to not expose to the risk. The other thing has significantly changed is the perception of, you know, using bike and using scooter go around is not a mainstream, let's just call it, right? People, you know, folks has been established the behavior of using cars to get around. So I think this is a great opportunity, not just for Lime, but also for us collectively to break that established behavior and to adopt a more you know, not only just cheaper and faster, but also environmentally better ways of travel. And the other things also significantly changes how city views private companies like Lime. In the past, there's some sort of tension is like, you know, us versus you, well, as after pandemic, everyone realized we're all in this together and we have to work together in order to fight it. I think the society we live in is going to be hard as one individual or one company can make systematic change to the world we live in and make that significant impact. Working together will make it happen, and that's what we're seeing as well. More active engagement from the cities, from government, to craft regulations to work with us together to provide better services, healthier, and also environmentally, better solutions to the users. The other thing I think will change is that's always the vision for Lime as well. Similar to what Bertrand said, we are here to innovate. We're here to change, to make the change. But at the end of the day, it's not only what we have changed directly, is the movement that we're creating. So we're very happy to see that movement is going. I'm very happy to anticipate there are more and more users and cities will join the course.
Thank you, Brat. I feel for what you're saying in regards of making the tough decisions. We did such at WEBIT, and you did a very tough one. Definitely, we have seen how you have created a company of a value of 2.4 billion or even higher, as per your last rounds, and then you basically put a halt the whole operation around the world, which brought you to a situation where I know that you are now going for an emergency round, which I would love to support myself, and I would be happy to share with our global community if someone has not heard of that opportunity to support you going back to this new, better normal. But what you're saying also reflects to with the next question I would like to have actually. You know that people change their behaviors. We've all seen how people change behaviors. Some people say we have a very short memory and we will go back to the old normal. But still, what are your expectations and what are the opportunities and threats that this change is bringing to the city mobility?
Yeah, it's the reason I believe that many changes will be long-lasting or even permanent change are really two reasons. Well, first of all, the people always hesitate to change, but when they change, whether they stay there in that new norm or not, is not just only the reason why they change, but also the other benefit that comes with it. So I think many people didn't change in the past because they're not hesitating to try. But after they tried it, realizing it's better, more comfortable, faster, cheaper, and also environmental protection-wise much better, and in this case, much safer. Then there's no reason to go back, right? So I think that's why I firmly believe it will be a long-lasting trend. There's a saying that well, some hotels, I travel a lot, right? So some hotel, I still remember the quote. It says, "Come for dinner, stay for the hospitality." And that's, I think, is a better way to describe it. When user first attracted to a mode of transportation, maybe it's only for cheaper, maybe it's only for faster, maybe it's only for safer, but it stays when they realize everything is better. So I think that trend, I firmly believe, will be long lasting. And the second thing I think that will be the causing those changes permanent is the collaboration among the users, communities, cities, and also the governments as well. The change of the infrastructure will significantly change, and also regulation as well change how we adopt new mode of transportation or any other services. So in the past, imagine you're in the city, there's no bike lane. Even you love using bike get around, right? You're still subject to some of the risk of the motor traffic, and it's not going to feel safe. And when those things happen, user will adopt a short-term behavior. They will adopt the bikes and scooters in the short term, but then long term is still not viable or not feeling safe to using that mode of transportation. But during this time period, as we can see, Paris, London, all of the places, they are going to build hundreds, if not thousands, miles of bike lanes, protected bike lanes. And that permanent change will further encourage the user behavior shift, and also to help them to stay in comfortable and feel safe in the new mode of transportation.
That's very, very interesting, because we observe now, being part of Eastern Europe, the numbers here with COVID are tenfold and more lower compared to Western Europe, and unfortunately to US and other places. So we see how people, not very slowly, went back to normal, but still they try to avoid the usual city transportation, including the tram, underground, etc. Do you see this as a trend in the rest of the world where you're active? And do you expect that the personal means of transportation, such as the one that Lime is providing and giving that opportunity to the users, will be further exploding, having in mind the infrastructure changes that you've mentioned?
Yeah, I do think the number one thing, I do think the trend of individual travels will be individual, not meaning owning cars or that, but rather individualized mobility will be a permanent trend to stay, given the social distance and all that. But the end of the day, using the analogy I provided, right, they come for the safety, but they stay for the convenience, for the safety, and for faster avoiding the traffic, and also for lower costs. What we are not fighting against like public transit or not, and I do believe they will coming back in a strong way, but probably taking a little bit of time to get there. What I do believe is the future of transportation has a few characteristics. The number one thing, it should be electrified. In the urban environment, 50% of the pollution comes from cars. And we should get rid of it regardless. That's within the city or outside of city. That I think the whole world is marching that way, and we have a lot of scientists and technologists are developing new technologies like Mr. Piccard is doing right now. So electrification of all the mobilities is an inevitable trend. The second thing I believe is it got to be shared. With the urbanization, with the density of our cities that we live in, there's just no way the infrastructure will be able to support everyone owning a car or some sort of mobility, vehicle, and only using 5 to 10% of the time. So it's gonna be shared. And the third part, given all the pressures from traffic infrastructures, cost, and pollution, the vehicles to be shared needs to be customized or in a way that is tailored for the use. And what we have today is you go out, buy a pencil, you drive a car, you drive a 4,000-pound car to buy a pencil, or just to get there with a briefcase. And that's not going to be the case. That should not be the case. From an energy perspective, to move people from A to B, it took Lime scooter 1/100th or 1/80th of the energy compared to a conventional car. So I think that kind of saving, even though directly is trickling down to the users, but collectively as a world, as a society, the saving is humongous. And at the end of the day, I think the world of the future future mobility will be electrified, will be tailored for individual use cases, will be shared, and it should be three-dimensional. Today we're we live in a three-dimensional world, but our mobility largely is two-dimensional. Right? I think it is possible. The technology is not entirely there yet, but it's possible, and it should be, that it's a horizontal mobility and vertical mobility as well.
If you allow me to wrap up here, and I will take only the two last sentences that you've shared. First, going out with a solution like lime or other, buying a pencil is 1/80th of the impact, negative impact, you all are going to have to the nature, to the environment, if you go by car. And second, this is more into the general discussion that we are going to have in a second, after I invite our third guest and moderator here for the past part of this episode, is that mobility is not three, but only two-dimensional. And there's so much space. I hate the word disruption, but improvement. Thank you so much, Brat. Now, with both of you, with Bertrand permission, I would like to invite a special guest. Let me introduce her first.
Louise Lucas is a tech correspondent for more than 20 years at the Financial Times, with experience in a variety of roles based in London and Asia. These include Asia Tech Correspondent, Asia Lex Writer based in Tokyo, Consumer Industries Editor, and Asia News Editor in Hong Kong.
Louise, it's such a pleasure to have you at WEBIT Virtual Studio. How are you?
Good, thanks for inviting me. It's good to be in such good company.
Thank you so much for joining and accepting. And I can't agree more. The company is fantastic. And particularly for the topic we have, we are going to be hosting the usual players, the Volvo, the Toyota. We have everyone upcoming this week. But it's such an amazing start of the week with these two great visionaries and the leadership of Bertrand and the way we've seen Lime conquering the cities just before COVID. That's so phenomenal. Full respect for their achievements. So Louise, you shall be back with us in the studio for the Leading Media Forum. But today you have the role of asking the tough questions. So please correct if I was not asking those until now, and please take the lead. And here you are together with Bertrand and with Brat. So let's start.
Thank you. Well, I think I'd like to pick up on I thought was interesting is both of you seem to say that long term after COVID, things will be better. I guess, Brad, to start with you, I'd be interested why things will necessarily change. I mean, there's two things strike me. One, the sharing economy has come in for a little bit of trouble during this time, either the way that gig workers are treated, particularly in the US, things like Airbnb, it's sort of now at odds. Secondly, as you doubtless know, the experience of your industry in China has not been a terribly happy one. We've seen OFO obviously go under, and Mobike, I think it's still hanging on by its teeth. Why will you be different? Why will we still be seeing these Lime bikes on the street when we very seldom see yellow and orange ones now?
Great questions. Great to meet you virtually. Hopefully, we'll meet up someday in person. I think back to your question, there are many differences. I think Bertrand said one thing really important, and it tended to be ignored. We are entrepreneurs and innovators and all that, right? We tended to be optimistic. We tend to look at long-term big impacts. Meanwhile, in order to not only sustain a company, in order to make the impact scalable, it has to be economically viable. I think that is one of the biggest things for many companies, including micromobility in China, which has been a little bit struggling with, let's just say, unit economics, were the terms we use to be whether the business itself is sustainable. What we have seen so far, both in US or in Europe or in China or all over the world, is user loves micromobility. And that validates one thing, is the user demand or the value we're providing to the world. They are saving time, they're saving money, they're enjoying the open air travels, they're happier, and all that all combined together. But in order not only for a company like Lime to be sustainably operating the business, but also overall, use back to that the terminology earlier, they come for all the right reasons to use their service. But is that going to be a sustainable, systematic global impact that needs to be economically viable in order to make it happen? I think there are many things fail in the past. It's not they're not a great product or technology. It's not the user don't love it. Some were cited as say, hey, they were born at the wrong time, meaning at the time the technology, the economics just doesn't support it. I'll give one quick example here. One vital, some will ask me why now, right? Why Lime was created about 3 years ago? Why not earlier? And one of the vital technology was just not there. There are three things that are vital to us, which in the past was economically not feasible. One of them was GPS. I still remember the first GPS unit. I am pretty bad at like directions, right? The GPS unit I bought is $900. So imagine you put that into every single vehicle that costs much less than that. It does not work. The second is cell phone data. It was really, really prohibitively expensive in the past. Now it's as accessible as it gets. And the third thing is a supercomputer in your pocket, the smartphone. So three things come together, then create this perfect storm to make it economically viable. Technically, was that viable 10 years ago? Yes. Even 20 years ago, it was viable, technically. But in order to make it sustainable, back to your question, is how we make it economically viable and sustainable as well.
And
now
so
it's time.
Slightly on that line, obviously your last funding round, it was the valuation went down, as we're seeing with a lot of companies at the moment, to be fair. Is that a reflection just of coronavirus times and things will get back? Or is that a reflection of people being a little bit less patient about when they see profitability and that this is going to be the new normal?
Yeah, it's mostly driven by the coronavirus. I think, again, as I mentioned earlier, it was a very tough decision for us, as a founder, as the CEO at the time, and also chairman of the board. I think the company many times always facing tough decisions. And at the time, one of the tough decision for us is whether we are trying to keep valuation or those artificial stuffs, or whether we do the right things. And we choose to do the right things, and we know what potential impact it could be. We just didn't know how big that impact it would be. And as I shared with my team, I crafted a strategy, lay out a plan. We made tremendous improvements as a team on every single front. We planned for every single scenario. We just never planned a global pandemic. So that was a little bit,
Okay, and you're
surprise.
not alone in that. You're not alone in that, I guess. So.
Right. So we could have tried to say, hey, why don't you hold on to the valuation or whatnot, right? But just like say, what are the right things to do? At a time when pandemic hits the global market, we believe the right thing to do is to work with the city and the local community to help to reducing the spread of the virus. Therefore, we shut down the markets, we let go of the revenues. Now we're coming back to the market to work with the governments and also community to provide essential services. Imagine your healthcare hospital workers still need to go to work. The first responder need to go to work, and how they get there, right? Not everyone can afford a private car in the city, like London or Paris or Beijing or whatnot. We are providing these essential services in many cities that for the healthcare and the first responders, we're providing the services to them for free. So
Right.
hopefully that gives you a little bit picture of how we make decisions.
Sure, thanks.
Wow.
And Bertrand, you were talking as well about similar things. Things will be better afterwards. I guess what interested me there is, in order to change things, you'll still have to, airlines will still have to make a lot of investment, which they can't really do when they're repaying government money. Also, oil prices are low, so I don't quite see why the incentive would be for the big airlines to start doing, as you say, the right thing.
Louise, to be really clear, I did not say that the world will be better after the coronavirus crisis. I said that it's an opportunity to make the world better. But an opportunity that we miss, it's a loss. And we might be the losers. Because in the past, our world was offering always more. The world of the future has to offer always better. Better in terms of safety, of comfort, of course, but mainly in terms of efficiency. And efficiency, you see it in circular economy. You see it in new businesses with the waste. You see it in saving energy. You see it with new technologies. So the world has to be more efficient. Otherwise, we will suffer a lot. Humankind will suffer. Humankind will be buried under the mass of waste, pollution, wars, riots, social unrest, because nothing will work the way people will like to. So the recovery after the COVID-19 crisis has to allow us to have better. Now, you asked me a very precise question about price of oil. Solar panels need heat to melt the silicon in order to make the photovoltaic cells. We need to melt the minerals to make the steel for the wind turbines. We need energy to make the blades for the wind turbines. All these type of things is becoming much cheaper if the oil price is low. So it's not a question of having renewable energies in conflict with oil. If oil price is low, renewables are even lower than that. So it's a win-win.
Right, right. Okay, now we do have quite a lot of questions coming in, sorry. So in order to get more questions, I think we'll have to all be a little bit more brief. So an interesting one, I think, from a lady, Christina Turner in the US, saying, can you both describe the imaginary ideal city of the future and what keeps us from being there? Brad, since you're on the screen, do you want to start? And we're going to keep them very short answers.
What a great question.
It's a good one, isn't it? Yeah, I thought so.
It is totally. Well, I think first of all, the vision for Lime is to connect life and connect people rather than just mobility. But the starting point is mobility. So my answer will focus on that. As I mentioned a few things already, electrified, shared, purpose-built vehicles that's readily available for user to use and also very affordable as well. So all the things as up together, the city will be better, more cleaner, and users are better connected, so easier to visit loved ones and get together or go to work. That's the thing we have imagined today. Today, as we can all see from the global perspective, all the cities are most of the heavy polluted locations on Earth. And also, given the traffic that you ask yourself how many times you were feeling frustrated, stuck in the traffic, or just because of think about the traffic, say, hey, my sister lives 10 blocks away from here. Should I visit? Should I not? I don't want to be in the traffic. Those things should be all go away. Those things should not be our daily life. And we're working on that.
Right. Bertrand, and you've got to make it shorter than Brad. He's failing on this one on the length of the answer.
Okay.
What Bertrand, would be your ideal city of the future?
For all the situations where you don't move, that means house, offices, and so on, you need to have a smart city, smart grid. You need to have renewable energy sources that are stored, distributed, and consumed in a rational way, in an efficient way. And today, we are doing the opposite. Today, half of the energy is wasted. For everything that moves, you need to be absolutely clean and efficient. You need all the mobility to be electric. Just to give you an example, an electric engine is 97% efficient. You lose 3%. A combustion engine is 27% efficient. It means you lose 73% of the energy. When you understand that, of course, the world has to be electric.
Right, okay. And in terms of what are the reasons it's keeping us from being there? I mean, there's obviously a lot of players in how a city looks, but what's keeping us from getting there? Is it money? Is it sort of mindsets? What's stopping us getting to there?
It's not
Great
money,
question.
because it is profitable already. What stops us is the inertia, the fear of the unknown, the fact that today things work, they work, but they could work much better. And so many people just want to keep what they have and do more of the same rather than to take the risk of having something better.
Right, okay. And the other thing I wanted to ask is why you think that, I was very interested in your very precise timeline. That was originally 10 years, you said 3 years ago. What are the big steps that you have to take before you get to that time in 7 years and 6 years and 4 months, was it?
Yes. You need to put a price on the CO2 emissions, because CO2 emissions are an externality that are not taken into consideration. You know, it's like if you sell a house, but you do not tell that you have the price of the heater, that you need to pay for the water, that you need to pay for the gardener or the maid. It doesn't work. You need, even in a capitalist economy, you need to include everything that is a cost. And CO2 is a cost that is not taken into consideration. If you put this in, then you will have a fair economy. You will repair an injustice.
Right. And Brad, I'd just like to come back to you, because one of the mantras earlier on used to be, when we were talking about city mobility, was this end-to-end. So I could get on a train, then get off the train, maybe get a car for the next bit, maybe do a bike ride for the next bit. Is that idea still something that, particularly now you have Uber in there as an investor, that you would be pursuing, is this idea of end-to-end? So again, not fighting against public transport, but I could get, in London, the tube to a certain place, or whatever. Is that still something that you look at, this sort of end-to-end mobility?
That's right. I think we're providing a service, the service to the users, that it's not we deciding what the user wanted to go or how they want to go there. It's we provide a service to make it easier and better. And integrating with public transit and the modes of transportation is what absolutely we will do to make it smooth for the users.
Right. And can I just, we briefly touched on it before, but can I just ask you, what do you think the future, you mentioned that you sort of say the shared economy is very much the way, but it has had a big knock from coronavirus, and even talking about the shared bikes. I mean, you see people in the street, I'm sure San Francisco as well, desperately sanitizing everything before they get on it. How much of a dent will this be long lasting to the whole concept of sharing rather than owning?
Yeah, first of all, I think the share aspect is just inevitable. We are sharing many things we just didn't realize. For example, the road we're traveling every day, nobody owns it, right? We all pay tax to maintain it. The city infrastructures, the water running, the sewers, and everything. And when it comes to mobility, we are doing a lot of shares, including airlines. Nobody owns, some owns a jet engine. Plane, but majority of the world, in order to make a scalable impact, it has to be shared. And this share is not individual vehicles, but infrastructure. And again, what we are trying to achieve here is not converting yet another user, but rather to generate a movement that the users are joining the course. Cities are looking at it as significantly more importantly than before. We share the data with the city, and hopefully they build the infrastructure, communities join in, technologies working on the technologies, and the consciousness of environmental protection that will also come in.
Excellent.
Louise, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but regardless of how amazing you all are, I will have to wrap up here because time is pressing us. I would like to express my gratitude to you, Louise, for joining us and joining us again in 2 days' time. And special gratitude and thanks to Bertrand and to Brat for being our special guest today. I cannot think of anyone better of starting this week with but you guys. And again, full gratitude for what you're doing. Bertrand, thank you for pushing the boundaries of impossible, and all the wisdom that you shared here will make sure that not only the thousands of people, tens of thousands that were with us, coming in and out with this show. But everyone from our ecosystem will hear and read about them. I will be delighted if you somehow join our Planet Earth Summit, which we do together with a number of large partners, global organizations, UN, etc. And Brant, I will be happy to support your next steps. And definitely our global ecosystem is hopefully going to support your coming back to the market stronger and better once you've proved that people is all that you care about, which is full respect from us as a community for what you've done. Again, thank you all for joining. I would like to introduce the rest of the Mobility Innovation Week. Tomorrow, we shall be hosting the Volvo Technology Cars Fund. And so we are hosting Airbus BizLab Global Head, Christian. We're having Manif Mobility and Oliver Wyman's partner, Automotive and Manufacturing, Andreas, and Toyota AI Ventures Managing Director and board member, Jim Adler. They shall be vetting 3 of the best startups in mobility in the world that we have selected out of 4,500 applications for our Founders Games, you know, the world's biggest startup challenge with $1 million award. The 3 startups you will hear tomorrow pitching in this phenomenal jury of investors are the Hyperpolant, Lightyear, and UAT. Further, we continue with the leading media forum of the Mobility Innovation Week, where I shall have the utmost pleasure to welcome back Louise, representing Financial Times. And further, we have the editor-in-chief of The Economist Group, Technology and Telecoms. We have Business Insider's senior space correspondent, obviously talking about mobility, will go beyond our planet. And we have the Barron's columnist, Jim Motovali. And then on Friday, we will wrap up the week with Airbus Group demonstrators, the CEO of Airbus. Up next, Sandra, and we shall be having some other special guests you'll hear further. Thank you so much, wonderful WEBIT community, for being with us, and looking forward to see you tomorrow, 23 hours, a little bit less than 23 hours from now. Thank you all. Have a great day.
This program is powered by thevirtual.show, making your offline events virtual.